Hello and welcome to a new Google Sheets and Google Apps Script project in Practical Sheets. Today we're going to create an inventory system. I know that we already have like 15 videos of inventory system in the channel, but today is very special because we're going to do this inventory system with code, with Google Apps Script. We're going to create a form in Google Sheets where you can very easily select a product. For example, let's say we're going to sell albums, vinyl albums for the hipsters out there, me included. So let's select this one. Let's say I'm going to buy 2 of it. And let's say I bought it on the 9th of February. I'm going to hit on this button. That is not the nicest button, but it's the one I chose. And it says here the record was created successfully, and it created here. On the other hand, we're going to do very simple data validations. For example, I select this Metallica and I forgot to put my units. I click the button and drag this button. You have the message that you are not able to create the record, and actually let's put this message much. So this is what we're going to do, and then in subsequent videos we can create the same for outputs and for more other things. Basically we're doing a CRUD system, a create, read, update and delete system from Google Sheets, where I don't have to go to my input and create it manually in the row. This is a much more user-friendly way of creating the inputs and creating the outputs of my inventory system. Okay, it's not the most good-looking way, but because I don't know anything about design. But when you have this, then you can put some nice colors, nice logo, and all that, and it will look much nicer. Okay, so this is it. I know you love it, but before we start, I have to invite you to support me by subscribing to the YouTube channel, or even further, go to the Patreon page where you'll find the template of this video. So you don't have to hear me babble along 30 minutes, but you can just download it and copy it and move on. Thank you so much, and let's begin. As always, I like to start my inventory systems with a product sheet where I have the list of my products. Let's say we're going to sell vinyls or CDs from artists. I love music, so it's my cup of tea. So I went to this Wikipedia page of best-selling albums and I copied these tables. You can do it with an HTML import HTML formula, but I won't bore you with that because this is not the video. If you'd like to know more about this, we could do a separate video. For now, I'm just going to paste it. So I'm bringing the best-selling albums. This is what I want to sell in vinyl. So I have the product that is the mix of album and artist. Then I have the album and then I have the artist. I did this first concatenation because it's easier for us to recognize the product when it has the album and the artist. We could have a reference, but for now, let's leave it without reference. I think this is reference enough. I don't think there are 2 albums unless we're selling CDs and vinyls, but let's say we're just selling vinyls, so there's no way we are going to repeat this. If you think it's going to repeat itself in your kind of products, then you need to look for an ID that does not repeat. If in the name you cannot find it, then you should look for a reference, for a particular reference, a code, a number 001, 002. But if you can find something that is at the same time descriptive and unique, it's better. Because sometimes having another column that is the reference, that is a number, brings more problems, and it may be more ordered this way, but then when you need to find the product, then you need to do a lot of more things. But sometimes you cannot find it. So if you cannot, then you would have to have a reference code on the side. But if you are fortunate enough to have a name of product that can act also as a code, then I would suggest for you to do it. Okay, so for now, this is going to be our code, or the way we're going to reference our product and the way the user is going to look for our product. Let's call these products. And now we are going to create an input sheet. This is where our first sheet, when we're going to enter new vinyls we buy. So let's say I'm going to buy first one of Michael Jackson, then I'm going to buy one of Pink Floyd and one of Led Zeppelin, or 2 or 3 or 4, then I'm going to put it in my input. So what do I need? I think just with the product for now, it's good to know the year it was released in our product, but in our input, why? I just need to know the product, the date it was bought, and how many units. That's it. So product, units, or date, And that's it. Later we can put some costs and more, but for now, these two things are the only thing I need. So now is when the fun begins. We're going to create a form here, or forms, or you can call it any other way, but here is where we're going to let the user input products very easily. This is what is called a CRUD system, so that you can create, read, update, and delete. So for now, we're just going to create. So let's say product, then units, and the date. The product is just going to be a dropdown from this. So let's say data, or better yet, with the new options from Sheet, insert dropdown. It creates a new data validation rule. We're going to apply to this range for now, no more. The criteria is drop down from a range, and the range will be here. My products, I start in A2 and let's go up to A. Okay, I have here all my albums with this new functionality of Google Sheets. I could select colors. Maybe I want this back in black. It seems good that it's black. And then the dark side of the moon seems good to be a dark gray. And then you could have it any other way. So this is very useful when you have products that you may identify by color, or where there are products that are the most select. For example, if you know the one you're going to buy the most is, for example, Hotel California, then you could put this in a red color, so it's easy for you to select when you go here, and you can very easily identify it. This is not a drop-down video, but suffice to say that here we could change in our additional options, in our advanced options, we could change this so you don't have this cheap looking drop-down that many people don't like. So maybe we could change it to arrow, so it's more similar to what we had before. The only thing about this is that we don't have the color here, but once you select it, it goes to the color. So maybe you don't want that. So you can go back here and put all with the same gray color. It's not a problem, just a comment. Let's give it a bit of zoom because I know you're not seeing. Now we have our first product. Then the units. Maybe we can do a data validation here so that we can only put round figures and maybe positive figures. So if we go here, data, and then data validation, again, we have our rules, and we could add a new rule. And the rule could be in the number part, we can say that is greater than 0, for example. This is a number that has to be greater than 0. So, and we can reject the input. So if we click done, actually, I don't remember if I rejected the input here. Let's see. Okay, so in units, if I put a text, it won't let me. If I put a negative value, it won't let me. If I put 0, it won't let me because I'm not going to buy 0 units. But the only flaw about this is that if I put 98.6, it will let me. So it depends on your business. Maybe you do want, if you're selling kilos or, you know, pounds of something, maybe you do need decimals. I can later show you how to do a more precise validation so that it also does not let decimals to be inputted. And in date, a last validation. Here I'm in my data validation, so I can add a new rule. In my B3, the criteria will be that it's a valid date. I'm not going to put the date is before or after because maybe I want to put the date yesterday or something like that. So for now, I'm just going to leave that it's a valid date. So again, reject the input, click done. And if I write a text, it does not let me. And if I write a number, it will not let. Okay. So now this is like a first validation. We could do further validation, but for now, this looks good. Finally, we want to do a button that activates the function we have not created yet. So let's go to extension, AppScript, and create our function. Let's call this add purchase or add input if you want. So once I click my button that I haven't created, I want to take the product, take the units, take the date, and put it here in the second row. So let's do it. First, I need to connect to my worksheet. I can do this with Spreadsheet app dot, again, a bit more zoom, Spreadsheet app dot get active spreadsheet. So this will be my book. I always like to separate these variables. You could do this with a var, with a const, with a let. I think const work well in this context. In this context, there are a lot of videos that explain the difference between constant, variable, and let. For now, let's say that a constant cannot change in time. So let's call this book, because our book, or worksheet, because our worksheet will never change. It's always the same. And then we're going to have our first spreadsheet. That is the spreadsheet where I have my form. So again, this could be a constant, and we could call this form or spreadsheet form. And I'm going to connect with my WS or my worksheet and then call a method. So I could use a couple of methods here. I'm going to use get sheet by name, and I'm going to select my form sheet, forms. We could later change the name if you want. And now I need my other sheet. That is where I'm going to paste the things, my input for now. So let's call this SS input, and it's going to be the same, ws.get sheet by name, but the name in this case is input. Okay, now I have my two spreadsheets, and I need to get from my form sheet, I need to get the product, I need to get the units, I need to get the date. Now that I have my sheet, I could access these cells with the getRange method. The getRange has a couple of alternatives. Here, I think it's easy just to put B1 for product, B2 for units, B3 for date. So B1, and we need to put here get value. We're going to call this, again, this is going to be a constant because it's not going to change over time. Product. If you want here, we could put display value. It's easier, so it can always bring the format you bring here. It's especially useful for the date and when you talk about currencies. Let's copy this, paste it 2 times, and now we're going to have here the units, but this is not going to be B1 but B2, and here this is not units but date, and this will be B3. Okay, now I have my 3 variables. Now the last step is to get these 3 variables and put them here. So now I've already have access to my SS input. So I'm going to say SS input dot append row. Append row is a method that you provide an array of values and it will look for the last row or the first row available. So here the last row is this one, number 1. So the next row available would be number 2 and it will paste it here. But if I had data in 2, 3, and 4, then 4 would be my last row and the first row available would be number 5, and this is where it would paste. It always pastes after the last row. So append row needs an array. The array in this case, it's going to be product, comma, unit, comma, date, products, comma, units, comma, date. And that's it. I think I don't need anything more. Let's save. What do I have wrong here? I have this weird symbol. Let's save again. It looks good. Let's test it. So I'm going to buy 2 units of Back in Black. Which date? The 30th of January. Let's run. It's going to ask me some permissions the first time. I hit advanced, then I hit go to untitled project. I should have put a name to the project. Let's take the opportunity first here to change this for a name. Let's call this inventory. Inventory with Google Apps Script. Okay, so I put here products and actually it should be product. Where you have to be very careful that the names of the variables are exact, including the upper and lower cases. Save and let's run again. Okay, let's see. Now I have it. It looks nice. Okay. And if I put another one, let's say Thriller Michael Jackson, but I'm going to buy 3, and this is not the 30th, but 31st. Let's run again. Let's see. As you can see, it always puts it in the last row, after the last row, sorry. And here I can start doing all my input. Okay, so now I'm missing just a couple of things. First, I'm going to create my button. So let's hit insert. There are a couple of ways of doing it. One is doing a drawing. The other one is doing an image over cells. Let's go to Google Images and say buy. See what we have. here, maybe here. I like this, but you can put whatever you want. So let's select it, scale it down. Let's put it here. Now I'm going to copy the name of my function that I called add purchase, and I'm going to copy it without the parentheses. I'm going here, the 3 dots, assign script, and I'm going to paste this add purchase. I hit OK, and it should work again. So let's put another one. Let's Zeppelin 4, 1, and this is the 1st of February, and I hit here, and it should work. Apparently, it is working. So now, just a couple of things to finish this first part. So the first thing is that this should have some validation. For example, if I don't put units here, let's see what happens if I delete this and hit the button. Here, pastes something without a date. Here, this is incorrect. First it was date and then units. So let's correct this. Okay. So I'm not pasting the units. So I shouldn't let this happen if there are no units. Other thing I could do is to signal somehow, tell the user that the record was saved okay. So one way to do it is to have a pop-up. Another way to do it is to have a message down here. Given that this, in theory, will only work in desktop, not in mobile. Actually, it can work in mobile, but we need to do some arrangements. So maybe in part 2, part 3, or part 4, we could show you how to do it for mobile. But in theory, these first steps we're doing won't work in the Google Sheets app. As a comment in my Spanish channel told me, actually, you could, if you open it in Google Chrome and you activate the option of looking at the website as in the desktop, then the button will work. But I think it's too much work to ask for the users, and it's the UI, this UI in this user interface in mobile is way too complicated, way too cumbersome. It's very difficult to manage, but it could be done with some hacks, but I don't like it personally. So I think there's a better solution that we could do in the future. For now, given that we are going to do this in the future, I'm not going to create any more barriers for cell phones, because if we create a pop-up here, it also won't work in cell phones. And let's try to do this as mobile friendly as we can. Even if now, today, in this video, you cannot put it in the cell phone, trust me that in later videos, if this catches on, if someone watches this, we will transform it and make it mobile friendly, or as mobile friendly as we can. So I think it's better if we put a message here. All of this rambling just to tell you that I prefer to put a message here. So here maybe in cell 5B, we could put our message. So in our SS form, we're going to go to arrange B5, and we're going to put here a message. And the message will be, the record was created. Let's try it again. So let's do another one. Fleetwood Mac 1, this same date, the record was created successfully. Then we could put some colors and make this much nicer, but for now, I think it works great. However, we need to delete this later. Finally, we're going to do the validation I promised. So there are a number of ways we could do it. Given that there are so few fields, then it's easy. When you have 10, 20, 30, maybe we'll find another way. But my philosophy is to try to do it, keep it as simple as possible. And then if it complicates, in many of your cases, it will be complicated and you'll have 30 or 40 or 50, then we can do it another way. But for now, I think we could do just a very simple if, and we're going to say that if product is different than empty and units is different than empty, and if date is different than empty, then we need to have the 3 conditions. This is why I put it with a double ampersand, that means and. If this happens, then we are going to do this. All of this. If not, if any of the 3 are empty, in our case, I need the 3 mandatory. Maybe you'll have some that are not mandatory, so you'll just put the mandatory ones. If not, we're going to put a new message, and the message will be, you are missing a field. Again, this is the most simple way. Then we can, in a later video, we could put what field is missing. But for now, I think this is more than enough. Let's save and let's try it. Let's say I'm going to buy Alanis Morissette, and I forgot to put the units, and I hit here, and apparently it didn't work. You are missing a field. Maybe we can complete this message and say you were not able to create the record, colon, you are missing a field. Let's save and let's try it again. With Bad Michael Jackson, again, let's say I put 3, but I forgot to put the date, and I click again and you were not able to create the record. And if I go to input, I was not able to create the record. Okay, so this is very simple validation. That lets me control a bit what I'm going to input. Here we can put this. Then I think this is it for part 1. It works well. You are able to put your input. Then you can put your stock here. I'll leave you to my stock video where you can learn how to create your stock. We could do this in a later video, but for now I wanted to show you how to do this with a button with Google Apps Script. Finally, we're just going to give just a glimpse of formatting. So here I could put a smaller font, and here we could all put it in a much better, much nicer font, and we could put this in bold, and we could maybe give some color here, delete the columns I'm not using, Control Shift right, Control Alt minus to delete, and the same here from 9 downwards, Control Shift down, Control Alt minus, so it looks a bit nicer. Then we could say view and show no grid lines, and we could put some very simple grid lines here. So I'm going to select these ones, but much more nicer, gray ones, maybe dotted ones. And here I could put my message field a bit nicer also. And you could put a better image than the one I put, okay? And for example, we could put here a conditional formatting. Very simple. I'm going to paste this and insert format conditional formatting, and here I'm going to say the text is exactly, and let's paste this, and we're going to put a light red, and I'm going to add another rule that if the text is exactly this other one, the record was created successfully, we'll put it in green. So let's try it out. I'm going to now give a date here. If I close this and close this, it looks much nicer. And let's this, and then you have it. Okay, and I've been able to create it. I could also put here better formatting. Delete the columns to the right. Again, Control Shift right, Control Alt minus. And in the products, I could do the same. Control Shift right, Control Alt minus. Let's give some zoom out so this looks nicer. And again, my headers, it just looks a bit more pro. And then I could freeze the first row. The same here in my input, I could freeze my first row. And if you want, you could do this bigger. Just let's select everything and let's do this in 18. Again, you could format it 100 times better than me. I'm not very good at this, but it's work. This is what I'm good at, that it works. So if you want to do the output, it's exactly the same thing. You could do, this could be your homework. You could do the same form in another form, or better yet, you could put the form here at your right with some other columns, and you would just change, you would create a new function. It's not called at purchase, it's called at sale. And here it will not be input, it would be output. you would change these cell references. The message would be the same, or maybe you put another field for the message, and that would be it. And you assign it to a new button. So you have the button to sell, to buy, and the button to sell. We could do it in the next video if you're interested. Thank you so much. See you next time. Forgot. And as always, if you liked what you saw, then you can support me by subscribing to the YouTube channel, or even further, going to the Patreon page, where you're going to find the template for these and the more than 70 videos we have in the channel. Thank you so much. See you next time.